This is really about being free to create what you want your life to look like. We each are our own hero. And how do we take the challenges that come our way and see those as the birth process of us becoming heroic? Can you meet that judgment that ultimately will surface with neutrality?
This is the Wall Street Coach Podcast with Kim and Curtin.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Wall Street Coach Podcast with me, Kim and Curtin, and Lucas Peterson. How you doing today, Lucas?
I'm doing great. It's wild times right now, but
wild
it's great.
Times.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little nutty today. There was 2 podcast recordings before this one, so I'm all podcasted out. But yesterday we did a live Instagram live. I'm gonna do that on Tuesdays and Thursdays at market close, 4:30 Eastern, and we had a good 30 people in the room. I think Stephen Johnson came in for a little bit. Liz Lely came in for a little bit. Some trader friends that were showing up. So I'm excited about that. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to do speed coaching, by the way, for everybody who's hearing about these two. They're going to be quick sessions. But, I did some speed coaching for Liz yesterday, and she's written me since saying, she's going to run with it. So please come along for the ride. I hope everybody will come along for the ride.
Yeah, and in that I tuned in, and the advice, you seemed to blow Liz's mind with the idea of if you saw a dog, you wouldn't call it a bird, or vice versa. I don't remember, but that was
right. Bird.
And it is.
You never call a bird a dog.
A fundamental part about trading that we forget is don't trade what you think's going to happen. Just trade what you see, right? And
correct. Correct.
Especially with your on a short time period, you can look into fundamentals, but if you're just trading, if you're just scalping and trading. Day trading, you can just go technical most of the time and you're going to be all right and just obey your stops. So. Exactly.
I learned that quote from Raphael Cushnir, the man who taught me emotional connection. Yeah. And he said, that is what's happening most of the time. We, on one hand, we hear that crazy statement, which you never look at a bird and say that bird should be a dog. And that sounds crazy. And yet we do it every day, all day long with that. Anything that guy shouldn't have cut me off, to that trade should have worked, to I want to have a different experience with a human being. It's just us constantly being in resistance to what is so. And the more we resist, what's the famous saying? What we resist persists. Mm-hmm. So it's learning how to not be in that resistance, to be able to handle the resistance you see on your trading screen.
Yeah. This is something we kind of buried the lead, but we're supposed to have JJ vwaptrader1 on this afternoon.
We are.
He'll be in the second half of this episode.
That's right.
But that's something that we'll have to talk to him about, is resistance and what that looks like, and what it's been the past couple of weeks with the Wall Street bets versus the hedge funds versus the people jumping in, and who knows what people are doing and for what reasons. So I'm interested to get his take on that.
I'm interested too. And, very fortunate to have a great relationship with JJ. And so he did SteadyTrade, Stocks Trade podcast today. And then kind of at the last minute, I was like, I'm recording my podcast today too. Would you come on? And he was like, yes. So, but he's got a lot going on today. So hopefully he can make it in for a few minutes. But, it was really interesting to just be able to start to understand what has happened with GameStop, what has happened with Robinhood, what is going down now with Wall Street bets. And I think having somebody who's been a former market maker help us understand it, because what we're seeing feels complicated. It's complicated to me because I'm obviously at the start of my baby trading journey. But it's certainly, even some of the things he spoke about today, it's complicated for sophisticated traders because he's been sitting on another side of the table for a very long time. So,
and I think that's a big thing that people are not talking about right now, is how this complication of what is happening and why things are happening with these stocks, and everybody's aware of it, and everyone knows what a short squeeze is now. Yep. And that, you know, unless you were either in the market or watched the one episode of Billions where they talk about it.
That's right.
Most people probably have no idea what that means.
No idea. Totally. Totally.
Now,
and I'm sure some people watching us don't have any idea. I mean, I think we have an eclectic group of people that watch our podcast, you know, and certainly some of them are very sophisticated traders, and some of them are new traders, and some of them are non-traders at all, that are probably now for the first time in their life thinking, am I missing out on all the action?
And if you look at it, I mean, if you look back at, you know, the past couple of weeks, and you look at what happened with GameStop, and you're like, man, if I'd only bought, you know, 10 shares at $20, like $200, that's nothing. And then it would have gone to, you know, multiple thousands. But that's a huge FOMO this never happens. I mean, well, it does, but I saw something online that was the like odds of a short squeeze like that happening, like these parabolic moves are like 1 in like 13 billion or something like that. And then they all happened in 1 week. Something like that. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Where is GameStop? I looked a little while ago. It's like at 110.
Yeah, it was kind of trending around 100 today. Kind of back and forth chopping. Yeah. Okay. But it slid from the open. I think it opened around, you know, 120-ish. I'm not even sure, but and then it's kind of just reclaimed a bit, but it seems to just be kind of chopping and sliding every day. So
I just watched it yesterday. Just keep dropping and dropping and dropping. It was just fascinating to watch it, and just fascinating. The whole experience is fascinating. And, you know, I just want to speak to, you know, my frustration just as a capitalist, a conscious capitalist. You know, I was very, very disappointed when I saw Vlad's interview, was it on CNBC? You know, I just guess I want to speak to that. If you don't have any sort of empathy for your own customer base, I don't believe you should be a CEO of a company. Like that was you know, so I saw him on two things, Vlad. I saw him do that CNBC interview where he just really just spoke in circles, did not really say anything. And then I saw him basically get interviewed by Elon Musk on Clubhouse. I was on Clubhouse that night, and the night was like, 4 nights ago, Elon Musk was in a club room, which was unbelievable to just listen to Elon Musk, you know, shoot the shit, so to speak. And then he brings in Vlad at some point. And, you know, you got Elon Musk coaching him on trying to like how he should explain himself. And the kid still can't do it. And the kid has spent most of his time basically saying, oh, well, I was sleeping when the call came. And hey, our platform is #1 in the App Store. And I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? How can you be completely non-apologetic, not empathetic, not at all taking any responsibility?
Yeah, it was pretty shocking. I mean, a lot of people, he got a lot of flack for that. And I think, in my opinion, kind of rightfully so. It was, you know, it seems like the more information that's coming out is that there was an issue with the clearing. And that's, you know, in some ways out of Robinhood's hands. But if he could have just explained what was happening, if he knew what was happening, and just said, you know, like, just be forthright with people, be honest. Like, people want honesty. They don't want
they do. They just
give them the runaround.
Even if, you know, you ran out of liquidity, like just say that, like just own it. Like, you know, Brene Brown has a great quote in one of her talks. She's like, this isn't our first rodeo, people. Like shit happens. Like just own it and say, I'm sorry, I'll fix it. This should never have happened. We will never let this happen again. And that has not been done by him nor anybody else. And I'm just outraged that, I think more than anything, that the company is just, you know, being given so much more money and is becoming even more popular now because, of course, people, third person, are hearing about it. They don't even understand the the variables of what they're getting themselves into. But just the fact that he is not holding even himself accountable, and that his own shareholders aren't holding him accountable, it outrages me. It outrages me when there's somebody like, Dan Price, who runs Gravity Payments, who has shown us what conscious capitalism looks like when he reduced his own pay to make sure that all his employees were going to be brought up to a living wage, which was $70,000 a year. And that, to me, is that is what capitalism is about. That's what Adam Smith spoke about, our moral obligation, beyond to those less fortunate, so to speak. And I'm just kind of horrified. And Robert Monks, I can't help but think of him. He's featured in my book. He's one of the first really vocal, active shareholder activists. Shareholders have a fiduciary responsibility, and they should be holding CEOs that run companies like this, their feet to the fire, and be like, this is bullshit. You don't get to do this to our customers. It's just, I could just spit. I'm so mad. So mad that because I'm seeing all the human beings who were not able to use that platform as they expected to. And I get that Wall Street changes things on people all the time, which is totally not cool either. But still, this is a company that's, I don't know. So I'll be quiet now, but I'm pretty pissed.
No, yeah, I think it's fair. It's like you're playing a game, and then all of a sudden you're in the middle of the game, and because one team is losing, they come out at halftime and they're like, "Well, now we're changing the rules to the game, and every touchdown you score counts for 2 points, and every touchdown they score counts for 7 points." So it's it was a little frustrating.
And by the way, you can't even play the game anymore.
You only get to play with 3 players.
48 hours, however long it lasted, 36 hours. Yeah. You get to only do this, but you don't get to do any of that. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, that was tough. But I know people who made some good trades on it, but my biggest concern was for the people who didn't necessarily know what they were getting into, and maybe put in thousands of dollars just watching it go up days in a row, and assuming and hearing what a short squeeze was, and then not being able to do anything except for sell their position for a loss. And that's tough.
And that just sucks. It just sucks. Today we had a specific topic. Let's see here. We're going to talk a little bit about being careful about mentors.
Around the information that you're getting and qualifying that information. Yeah. A little bit different than what we talked about last week, which was around, how to find the correct mentor. But this is more around qualifying the information, maybe back testing your information. Yeah. I know a lot of successful traders who back test new theories that they're trying. And so that's always, in my opinion, there's no reason not to. Check it out, see where it'll work, see where it will fail, and try to discern what the reasons those things happen are.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think especially now with the craziness of this market, you really more than ever have to, because you have to bake into the recipe the fact that the rules of the game could change at any time. And, in the last episode we recorded with JJ, he spoke to, it actually was Turney Duff. I got to interview him this morning. He's the author of the book, The Buy Side. I read that book in 2 sittings, people. It was riveting. I just could not put it down. He's such a good storyteller. He's also been a consultant and helped write for Billions. He worked on Wall Street about 15 years, kind of during the height of the craziness. I think he was in there in 97 or 96 and in there for a long time. And he has so many stories in that book. Can't say enough good things about it. And I got to meet Turney this morning. And one of the things he said is, you have to prepare for where, things are going to go pear-shaped financially as a trader, as a human being. Like he was using the example, if you meet 10 people, he's like, maybe 8 of them are like, not here nor there. And one of them becomes your best friend for life. And the other 2 try to screw you. He's like, so what? You got a best friend for life, like, and you got a bunch of people that didn't show up in the radar. And yes, somebody tried to screw you, but like, plan for that. Plan for the rules being changed. Plan for being screwed. And if you bake that into the recipe right from the get-go, you potentially protect yourself. And I thought that was, I'd never heard that advice before. I'd never heard a lot of advice. And I was like, I really like that. I really like that. So.
Yeah. That reminds me of a pretty practical, I was listening to a podcast with Tom Canfield. He's a trader. And he was talking about with some other traders, and they were talking about how like ways to add to a portfolio. He's more of a day trader, which in a lot of ways, is safer sometimes, because then you can protect your account easier. But these other guys were talking about how to add to our portfolio and like the ways that they do it. And it's kind of the same way, where it's like you might take 10 positions, but then you just start adding to your winners, and if it hits theirs was like, I think they had a benchmark of it 20%, and then you watch it. And if it gets to like 25, then you add in, and you just start cutting the others as they start failing. So, and then, and you just keep doing that over and over again. And by the end, you have a bunch of winners. And then as they start failing, then you're topping out, then you are just rehashing it all the time.
That's a brilliant, it is exactly that same kind of concept.
Yeah. And
it makes a lot of sense. I
like the idea of transferring that into your personal life as well.
Yeah.
Around friends, or even just like thoughts and thought patterns, emotions.
Absolutely. The other thing that Turney said that was really very powerful, and I think he spoke about a mentor suggesting this to him. He said that ultimately at all times you want to have a coach, he said, someone like myself in your life, he said, and you also want to have a peer, somebody who's kind of at your level, but you also always want to have in your life somebody that is kind of developmentally a little bit behind you, who you are pulling up. He said, because in that, he said, and that's the place most people fall apart. They don't do that. He said, and part of what that does is it keeps you fresh. It keeps you on your game with the fundamentals. Yeah. And here is JJ. I'm so happy he's joining us. Perfect. And I thought that was great advice. Wasn't that good advice?
Yeah, I love that.
Aloha, JJ.
Aloha.
How you doing?
Hey, JJ.
Hey, how are you?
Great. Thanks for coming on.
You're not going to have too much of me today, JJ. You're not going to be sick of Kim and Curtin at the end of today.
I might just move back to Hawaii.
Yeah, I think you should. I think you should. We'll save on the time difference and everything.
Oh my gosh.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is JJ Gorilla. Amazing market maker, former market maker. Now he's helping day traders, of course. Thank God, he's had a come into Jesus moment, you could say, and he also is a former nightclub bouncer, which to me is like the most incredible position anybody could ever have, because you saw it on both ends, right?
Oh,
everything.
God. Yeah,
also known as Gorilla.
Don't let your kids do it.
Don't let the kids do it. Known as the Gorilla of House Street. You can find him on Twitter at vwaptrader1, and he also is a co-host of Confessions of a Market Maker, and he is also the mentor for retail traders in microfuture.com. One of the things that's fascinating about JJ is that he actually survived a heart attack, experienced what it was like to not be alive, came back, and now he says he grew a conscience, and that is what he's doing now, is his redemption tour for day traders. So thank you, JJ, for being here.
My pleasure.
And JJ hides his face, so he doesn't have to worry about anybody being maybe too mad at him for telling the secrets behind the scenes.
Well, yeah, I still have clients that are still alive, and would rather. I mean, I do get sometimes they call me up and, hey, what are you doing?
And what do you say?
Yeah, what's that like?
I try to teach people. They're like, why don't you come back to work? Like, what are you doing farting around over there? Right? We got paper to move, right? I'll give you 2 million shares of this, 5 million shares of this, 3 million. Like, we need you, because honestly, there are not that many people left who do what I do.
I bet, JJ. I bet. So do you ever get tempted?
No, because you know what? I have my life. I have been through so much. And the stress of being on that other side, sure. You know what? It's really nice to make 20 million in a day, 50 million in a day, 100 million in a day. That's nice to do. But the stress that comes from when things go wrong are just, it's scary, because you've got people, you've got people's careers on the line. You've got, the money and the things people do. You put $10 million on the table, it belongs to the person who picks it up. That's how Wall Street thinks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And people will do some pretty ugly things for $50 million.
Yeah.
Right.
To witness that over and over again, I imagine it's just demoralizing too, just to mankind, like having, faith in mankind, I imagine gets kind of pulverized a bit.
And yeah, you're right. And you know what? I shouldn't complain, because I love the industry, but the deal side of it is just too much stress, especially for my health.
Yeah.
And you know what? I like trading now on the retail thing. After having a heart attack and a quintuple bypass, I find retail trading, it's relaxing.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not yelling at anybody. I'm not trying to educate some lawyer that I'm paying $3,000 an hour on what a clearing firm is.
Yeah.
It's so much more. It's laid back, and I get to talk to normal people. Which is nice for a change.
Yes. I could see that. I could see that. So we have a bit of an eclectic audience on our podcast here, JJ. We definitely have some sophisticated traders, and we have some beginner traders, and we also have people who've never traded and who undoubtedly after these last week and a half, 2 weeks, are thinking maybe I should be trading. So I think we got a little bit in there. we got a little bit of everybody watching us here. So JJ, would you be willing to give us kind of like, the layman's interpretation of what you saw went down with GME and with Robinhood and the wild ride it is still Wall Street Bets?
Yeah.
Why don't, give it to us like we're not that sophisticated.
Listen, there are times in history of the financial markets where very interesting things happen, and last week was one of them. Mm-hmm. In one way, I'm glad that the kids broke the system, because it needed to be broken, because the brokerage industry treats its retail clients very poorly. And, we were discussing this. If you own stock in your account in 2021, the technology should exist that you should be able to execute and get out of your trade. Yeah. Right. Apps freezing and shutting down, that sort of thing. All that sort of stuff is so 1999. It's almost as bad as in before, when brokers, when it got too busy and they didn't want to get the stress, the brokers wouldn't pick up their phones. Right? So it's the same thing. It's the same business model. It's more sophisticated. But I think it's like, what is this? A mob Sopranos boiler room where people are not allowed to sell their positions. I understand not letting them buy because you don't have enough supply to fill their orders. That's one thing. And then, all this double talk about everything. The guy from, robbing the hood should come out and say, why doesn't he just say, why doesn't he just say, excuse my language, we fucked up and we screwed up. We weren't ready for this. We didn't think, the order flow overwhelmed our systems. Yep. We didn't have the capital on hand. Our clearing firm freaked out. Tell the people the truth. It's not, it's clearly obvious to anybody who's worked in the industry. Like, so now you come up and tell them, well, there was a pink elephant, and then the snuffleupagus came, and
I was sleeping. And
I was sleeping.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were actually just talking about this, JJ, right before you got on, and we basically said the same thing. Just tell us the truth. We don't care, but we can see what's going on.
Yeah.
Just be straight with people.
Just be straight with people. You know, people, it's not 1980 where you have to do the fancy, fleece the people with the fast sales pitch.
Yeah. As if he even had that. He's so uncommunicative. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, this guy looks like he wouldn't succeed at a debate class in high school. Like, what the hell? How did this guy get all this money, raise all this money, JJ?
You know what? I'm telling you, you look at some of the guys, look at that freak from WeWork, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, my God, look at that woman who put on a black turtleneck and raised money on a fake blood test.
Good point.
Is that called?
Right?
Yeah, that was
Theranos.
Yeah, Thanos,
look
point,
at when you have this amount of cheap money in the system, right? People will fund you. The other thing is they're funding these companies with OPM, right? In the old days, Goldman Sachs was a partnership run by 30 old greedy men, right? Or even Muriel Siebert, the very first woman on Wall Street. She probably counted paper clips because they were fiscally responsible, because it was their money on the line. Yeah. Now you take these companies like Goldman and all these things are public, so they're using other people's money, so they don't care what they invested in.
Yeah.
Right? They don't care. They're like, yeah, I'll buy 10 of that, 20 of that, 30 of that. It's not my dough. I still get my management fee.
Yes.
Right?
Oh God. Not healthy. It's not healthy. Not healthy for business, not healthy for other entrepreneurs who are up to good things. It's just.
Yeah. I wonder, JJ, this is a question I've been thinking about all week. It's like, what's going on the other side when all these retailers, what's the mindset of the people on the other side when the Wall Street bets are coming in and they're like, we're going to buy and we don't care if we lose money. We just want to run the price up as much as possible to screw as many people as possible. Like what's happening there?
So what we think is lunch, right? Because see, my whole career was, say you and Kim and another friend of yours, 3 people took a company public and you each had 50 million shares. My job was to create a market for you to sell those shares into, right? So create the liquidity that you could sell size into and get out of your investment, right? So when I see something that happened, that is somebody who creates markets. That's like their wet dream, right? Mm-hmm. Because my whole thing was 20 years ago, I wanted to develop, back in the old days when I was evil, I wanted to develop this liquidity machine that, it would cost very little to bring buying into a deal. And I was trying to tell my very, very, short time frame, very short-term greedy guys that, look, if we build this, we would have what happened last week where you sell, if you sell 5 million people 100 shares of stock at $5 or at $1, do the math.
Yeah.
Look at how much dollar volume that is, right? And they'd be like, well, I don't want, 5 million people to buy. If 5 million people buying 10 shares at $5, right? And you're the seller, right? That is beautiful liquidity to sell into. And somebody obviously on this GME has been unloading dump trucks full of stock into the market. Otherwise the stock would be $1,000 bid.
Yeah.
Instead of where did it close at today? $89.
Yeah.
Right.
So explain that. So that's got to be then GME itself,
or the
where
people
else could
that
be coming
financed
from?
it. The people who financed it.
Okay. Wow.
Right. Now this is a company in bankruptcy. They filed a some sort of prospectus. What did they file? They filed a prospectus. My SEC work is a little dim
Rusty.
here, but
that's okay.
Yeah, but I mean, they did a 424B back in December, and that was with, I think it was with Jeffries, to sell up to $100 million of Class A common stock.
Wow.
Right. So now what these funds did was they said, okay, I'm going to take down 20 million in it, so I will pre-short 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then that is why you have that huge short interest.
Yeah.
Right, because this wasn't engineered as a short squeeze. It just happened because the funds were pre-shorting, because every time you give a company money, you better short their stock, because the CEO is going to run through money like poop through a goose. So you're going to try and get the money at the best possible price. People think fund managers are the only greedy ones. I've done 200 deals at least where you give the CEO $5 million, 3 months later, he's like, I need more money. And oh, really? So you went from living in a one-bedroom apartment to a penthouse. You're driving a new S-Class, and you're wearing $5,000 suits. Where did that money come from?
Yeah.
Shareholders.
What the hell?
Right?
God.
Look at Bernard Ebbers and his $6,000 shower curtain, and doing and spending $250,000 on a party for your wife, and paying it with shareholder money out of the company's treasury. Right? These guys, they lose their minds, and they think it's like some big party for them, and they're not fiscally responsible at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So because once again, it's OPM, right? Other people's money, and that's the problem with the environment we have now. That we have companies like Uber, things like that, who lose $4 billion a year. In the old days, that was a bankruptcy. Now we take it public and sell that crap to investors.
Yeah, it's a pretty strange model right now, just to see how most companies are negative and like soaring, right?
Yeah, and we're just selling people worthless stock, and God, I hope some of these companies actually do well, because people are paying insane amounts of money for this stuff, and I've never seen this end well, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Is
this anything like you've seen? Like, is there anything you can compare this to from what you've seen over the years, or is it its own animal?
One of my clients was the very first guy to do email marketing on penny stocks.
Wow.
And he did like 10 deals, and I remember I traded the last one deal, and it was a $5 stock. And I would have market makers calling me and say, I could pay the bid, which was $5. And I'd say, how much do you want to buy? He goes, well, what do you got? How much do you want to sell? I'd be like, 1 million shares? Done. I'm back for another. Wow. Right? The liquidity was amazing when email stock promotion. This was like 1997, 98. Wow. Right? It was crazy. And that's what I saw with this Reddit buying, except you take that and you just multiply it by 1 million. Yeah. Because I look at dollar volume. Every time I look at a market, I look at the dollar volume the stock traded, because my job is to be 30% of it. So GME traded $4 billion worth of stock today. So if I was the liquidating trader for the insiders, my client accounts better have at least 1.2 billion in them at the end of the day.
Wow.
Whoa.
Right? My job is to come into that market, take money out, and you do not know that I have been there.
And
that's what real trading is.
Is it still being done, JJ?
Hell yes. Oh yeah. It's amazing. And the dollar amounts even, look at this thing. It went to $483 a share. It closed at 89 or 92 or something like that. Someone has unloaded a god-awful amount of stock into this retail buying. And, it's there's something so fishy about this company. And I know people on Reddit are going to hate me, but why is it in bankruptcy? Why was the stock, what was the stock before this started? $2? Or what was it?
Back low. I mean, back in at the beginning of 2020, I know it was down in the single digits.
It was like $25, $20. I mean, this is crazy, right? And it's a company in bankruptcy. So the people who own the stock and have been financing this thing got to blow off all their paper into this buying. It was like they basically got a gift from God. And they get to walk away from this thing now, right? Because you don't see the company doing an offering, right?
No,
they're
not trying to, right? They're not trying to do anything with it.
Yeah, right. So I don't mind. And the problem is, through the whole history of the markets, insiders who have been selling behind shareholders' backs, we call that backdooring, have always blamed short sellers and sold from a long position. I mean, Belfort did it at Stratton Oakmont. Yes, because there was a short seller called Fierro Brothers, but Fierro was the back door. Every deal has a back door. You need to sell quietly without people knowing, right? Otherwise, they'll stop buying.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jeez. It's amazing too, because nobody's talking about this, JJ.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about this.
I talk about very unpopular things, and it's because I used to be paid incredible amounts of money to orchestrate short squeezes to take a price up so people could liquidate. And the last time I did that, we unfortunately, the guys who were running the company were very sophisticated, very well funded, and had diplomatic immunity. So what they did was they took down 3 clearing firms, right?
Oh shit.
Yeah. So I used to have clients that would take down clearing firms just for fun, right? Because that's where the money is, right? I had one client who took down 2 clearing firms while he was in jail, right?
God, what?
Yeah, there are guys I know that have been thrown in jail and will run deals from jail and have $100 million waiting for them when they come out.
What the hell, man? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
AJ, so how, like the sophisticated people, the people that have been around the markets for their whole lives, the investors themselves,
yes,
they don't even know this shit, do they?
No. See, I was raised in the sewers of the U.S. stock market. I worked in Vancouver, which was the fraud capital of the world back in the 80s and 90s. And it was the entry point for where, if you're a stock promoter, you would have your position in Switzerland or the Cayman Islands or Hong Kong or wherever, and then you would execute through Canada, selling your stock through Canada. It'd be from Switzerland through Canada into the United States system, right?
Wow.
So Vancouver's a very beautiful place, but it's a very seedy place. And so we had mob guys going, I've traded for those gentlemen, for, the gentlemen from Russia, for the gentlemen who ride motorcycles. They're all in these markets. Now, they got rid of a lot of that stuff. And now we have, hedge funds that are doing the same thing in smaller stocks. So the price action's a little better. You'll see, ex-Goldman guys, running deals, from $5 to 20, and those are nice and things like that. And we don't have pirate market makers anymore. Like, I used to rob order flow all the time. And, stealing order flow was a great way to make 20, 30 grand in an afternoon. Because what you'd do is you'd see a stock and you knew that the person who ran the stock wasn't sophisticated, and they'd be paying for a promotion, so the stock would be $1, and you'd call your guy at night, or Citadel or whatever, and say, show me bids, and he'd go, look, I can pay the bid for 100. So you'd sell him 100,000 shares at, you pay him 3 cents. So you sell him 100,000 at 97, and then you hit all the bids out, and then you tell him to get the hell out of the way. And then you slam the bids out, and you take the stock down to 60, and then you have an anomaly, somebody that the deal guys don't know, go and bid them 100,000 at 60, and they'll sell it. So you make 40,000 shares, 40 cents on 100,000 shares.
Yeah.
It's like 15, 20 minutes work, right? And that's how we used to make money, or trade ahead of sell-offs. So it was just all of that stuff was going on, and they've cleaned that up a lot now. But the thing is, when something like this GME happens, the sophistication of the people who are running these things, this isn't like me sitting sitting on 3 cell phones and, barking orders out. These are sophisticated people. And I would hate to even say this with this kind of dollar volume and what I've seen in these markets, I wouldn't even be surprised if somebody's laundering money through this thing, because, and I hate to say it, When you trade that kind of money, when it's trading $8-9 billion, you can slip $200-300 million through that. Nobody will even know.
Yeah, it makes total sense, right?
Right.
It's less than 1% of what's getting traded could very well be, and nobody would bat an eye because there's so much going in and out right now.
Yeah, and nobody really cares. Like the SEC, I don't know where they are or what they're doing, but somebody should have, I know it's buyer beware. I know that, but from 50 to 483 and then back down to 92, there's going to be some Wells notices going out at the end of this. And, I don't know who owns the stock, and, maybe I'm talking out of turn, but there's something very fishy going on with this company.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk a little bit about payment for order flow.
Oh, cool.
We talked about that a little bit. I had actually a client mention to me yesterday that this payment for order flow is actually created by Bernie Madoff. And I was like, wait, what? And then I heard it on podcast last night too, that Howard Lindsay had. One of the gentlemen who was in this roundtable conversation, he said the same thing. And I'm like, okay, today I'm on Wikipedia. And I would just love you to explain what payment for order flow is so people understand how Robinhood is actually operated.
Okay. Well, all the brokerage firms that trade equities get paid for their order flow. That is the business model of the U.S. capital markets. And Uncle Bernie, he might have been one of the ones. I've met the man at one of the very first security traders conventions I ever went to. And I told Kim the story because I was with a buddy of mine who was at Raymond James, and we were brand new, and he was like, godfather of the NASDAQ and all of this stuff. And there was him and a couple of guys from Sharp and a couple of guys from Knight, and my buddy, who was just an idiot. So he kind of looks around and he goes, so where are all the trader groupies? Right. And I was like, it's like so embarrassed. So that was my Bernie, and he just looked at us like, he was going to scrape something off his shoe, Bernie, he had that look.
What did that guy mean by that? Was he being facetious? Like, oh, everybody thinks Bernie's the man back then?
No, he was looking for girls, right? Because he thought the traders would have groupies like we were watching.
I see.
He had a couple of Jack Daniels in him, and so he shut himself off.
Talking to him like he's his college buddy instead of,
exactly,
and,
right?
And Madoff wants him to be like, bowing at his feet.
And I'm like, Mr. Madoff, it's nice to meet you, sir. It's nice to meet you. This is before we knew he was a criminal.
Of course.
Like a guy with respect because he's the godfather of the
Sure.
And here's numbnuts over here going, oh, where are all the traders?
Where are the chicks?
Yeah, where are the chicks? And I'm like, oh, okay, this is a great first impression.
Oh God.
And so that's my Madoff story.
Yeah, but he's the pioneer of the payment for order flow. He described it as a way for making, I'm reading from Wikipedia here, described it as a way for market makers to outsource the task of finding orders to fulfill, and compared it to retail arrangements in which a supplier pays for the rack on which its products are displayed. The practice was uninvolved in the Madoff's later fraud scheme, and it's long been controversial. At first, the New York Stock Exchange opposed it for use, but in February 2009, it sought permission from the U.S. Securities Exchange Commission to adopt the practice for its electronic exchanges. So help us understand how that works then, and why Robinhood, is.
Well, everybody gets paid for their order flow. Right. So the business model of a market maker, and nobody knows what a market maker really does. What a market maker does is they provide liquidity. And what that means is they buy from us and sell to us when nobody else wants to. So if you wanted to buy a stock at $5 and there were no market makers, you wanted to buy 1,000 shares, you might get 100 shares at $5, 100 at $5.10, 100 at $5.50. But if you have a market maker, they will short 1,000 shares to you at $5, which means now they are at economic risk because they've sold something that they don't own. But that is just a function of their job. So they go to the bid to try and buy it back and make the spread. And that's how they make money. And they're doing this millions of times a day, right? And that's how they provide liquidity. Now, they have to buy and they have to sell to us, but it doesn't say where. So they buy and sell where it's economically advantageous to them, right? Just like at the end of the day, market makers know that day traders have to get out of their positions, right? So they'll drop their bids to buy it as cheap as possible, right? And you see that in the S&P every night, and then the market opens up. It sells off at the end of the day. Globex, it opens up, right? So they can sell their inventory. So that system needs order flow because you're trading against the order flow. So you have to pay a brokerage firm to get their orders, right? So in the old days, the brokerage firm would be charging you commissions, and they're getting paid for your order. So you're getting basically double tapped, right? Yeah. And that's why they wrote that book, I don't know, 100 years ago, Where Are All the Customers' Yachts, where the broker takes the customer and goes, that's that broker's yacht, that owner of the firm's yacht. He goes, where are the customers' yachts? The customer doesn't have yachts, right? So that's the business, and it's always been like that. And ever since they went and introduced this stupid PDT rule, they cut all the retail out of the market, and now they're trying to get them back in because we need that liquidity. So they're giving people commission-free trading, fractional shares, just come, this is fun, right? And and that's
game.
And I'm not one of those old guys who is mad at people who made money on GameStop. I think if you're 18 years old and you made $100,000 last week, good for you, right? Yeah. Because what's the use of having $70 million when you're 80 years old and with a walker, right? let them go and have fun, right? And I think that's a great thing. I just don't like it when the street shuts them out, doesn't let them sell, right? Or it's just like, say, look, we can't handle the order flow, right?
Yeah.
Just why is it halted? Because it's too busy and we can't handle it.
Yeah. Exactly. And yet, even though we talked about this, you did mention in the episode we just recorded with SteadyTrade that you're, curious about this storyline that it's, Reddit and Robinhood and so on and so forth. But that, I just find it fascinating that it could be something other than that, which we just touched upon a few minutes ago. So, I mean, that kind of blows me away that there could be another theory out there that nobody's talking about.
That's unusually, I got a sinking feeling that, and I know I don't want to be a tinfoil hat guy, but I have been at the heart of so many pump and dumps, and I have seen, I saw, like nothing, when you have 30-40 billion dollars on the table, there are going to be some people who are really, really well capitalized, really, really intelligent, and meaner than a junkyard dog, right? Like, I mean, these are people who, they take down clearing firms. Like they wouldn't mind blowing up a space shuttle before breakfast and then having a nice light lunch, right? I've seen that part of people, the evilness when it comes to massive amounts of money. And I know I'm seeing, the old guys will tell me, toughen up, buttercup, that's the world. And I know that's what it is. Idiot me, I went and grew a conscience. But, like I was just saying, I always, I remember when I was working on deals before my heart attack, I always said, look, this whole social media thing will bring in so much buying that you'll run out of stock to sell.
Wow.
And last week we saw it, and it was the realization of my evil dream. And thank God I was not a part of it. But it's something that I've envisioned and I was trying to create, but my partners were too short-sighted because they wanted immediate buying. I said, what, put $1 million away. Let's hire some of these guys who can code and figure out the social media thing, because it will bring buying like you wouldn't believe. And there's
8 million. I checked Wall Street Bets this morning, Reddit's thread. I think it was over 8 million. right? That are,
users?
I mean, not that they're all investors, but users. And that was at 2 million. Then I was at 3 million. I think I joined when I was at 3 million, which was like a couple of days, I think, before it happened. And then it was at 6 million. Now it's at like over 8 million people that are on that thread.
And see, I'm a marketing guy from the old days, direct mail, right? Like Karl Rove, right? So here's the thing. If you have 1% of those people take a position, right? 1% of 8 million people, and all they need to do is buy a couple $100 worth of worthless stock. That kind of liquidity, I mean, it's like an Olympic-sized swimming pool of money. You know? And I know that there are guys in Vancouver right now, and thank God they don't have my phone number, because they're like, where's JJ? Because he said that this would happen. How do we do it now?
That's right.
And I just hope that this was just an accident, but I know that you can't put that much buying into a stock and have it go down that much. You can't, there's no place in the world big enough to hide that short position. That is selling from a long position. Somebody is diluting or selling into that buying.
It's exciting stuff. And I think like, it is. I don't know, in 10, 20 years, like more and more will come out, and I'm excited to see what if it ever does, but I think they'll, something will slip eventually about who is selling major positions. And
like I was telling Kim earlier, in 2001, I trained a group of guys and I taught them everything they knew, everything I knew. And I was trained by people. My clients are like characters out of a John Wick movie. Okay. So, I mean, I've been trained by guys who are ex-Goldman. I've been trained by guys who are abject criminals, and everywhere in between. So I took that knowledge and I trained this group of guys that I was working with. And it was like I unleashed a virus in the OTC markets. They went through and stole about $6 or $7 billion. And they did a bunch of deals and just sold hundreds and hundreds of million shares of worthless stock into buying, and which actually caused a lot of the rule changes. And that's why OTC markets volume dried up, because these guys made so much money and then they just disappeared into the mist. Nobody's been able to figure out who did it. I know who did it because I could see the level 2, I could see the players, I could see the order flow, I could see the way, I mean, it's everything I taught them I was watching in front of me. So, I just hope
those fingerprints are on this now.
Well, I'm looking at this thing and, if they could have done it, they would have. They have that personality. So I know the type. It might not be those guys, and I hope it isn't. But it's, because there's sophisticated people around. It's just not people I know. But there is something so fishy about the way this happened. And I don't like when regular people get taken advantage of, when it's just blatant, right?
Yeah, for sure.
A couple of weeks ago when this thing started, I said, Jesus, this is going to be the crime of the century. And, it's kind of shaping out to be that way. And let's see, if the SEC, the FBI, the Justice Department, let's see how good they are, because they should be tearing this thing apart. And you know what?
Well, it took Frank Casey 10 years with Harry Markopoulos and Neil Cello to get anybody to listen about Bernie Madoff. So I don't have that much confidence in their abilities. I mean,
it's just, the thing is, this one's really blatant, guys. I mean, come on, get off your files. Go dig around. Pull the transfer agent file. See who's been issued stock. Pull the DC. They have something called Depository Trust Company. They have sheets that get published every day that show where the stock is in the system, who owns it, all of that stuff. And they should pull the volume concentration reports. Maybe even go look at all the trading records. Where did all this size come from?
Wow.
Right? It's all, I mean, it's all there. There's a paper.
Hey, SEC, JJ just gave you the path to success. So somebody pay attention and write down these steps.
like I'm looking at this, and I honestly, a couple of guys and I were talking, and I'm like, yeah, and we got a Wells notice, and these guys are printing paper like it's going out of business.
I've heard of Wells notice, but I'm not sure I completely could describe it. So explain
a
Wells notice.
A Wells notice is what the SEC sends you when they're informing you that they're going to sue you for an infraction.
Wow, gotcha.
Right.
And are you saying there have been some already sent by them?
No. I'm just saying like we got them, right, for what we did. Yeah. And it was like running a lemonade stand compared to this.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
It's like, I made $20.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, oh my
billions.
God.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the billions are going by on the screen, and these guys they're just whistling Dixie.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. All right. So to those who are, maybe thinking about like trader or beginner trader or sophisticated trader or person who's even thinking about trading, what is the most important piece of information, simple, non-jargon advice that you have for them all?
Learn the business, because the business creates the chart, and the chart is reflecting the business transactions that are taking place. It's like a sales chart or anything like that. If you learn the business, and the other thing is take your time. Don't be in a rush, right? Unfortunately, everybody sees people, oh, look, I bought this and then it went up, and now I've got paid for my house, and I've got a $50,000 watch on. And all of that stuff, just take that with a grain of salt. It's going to take some time. It's a skill. Investing is a skill. Trading is definitely a skill. Do not think that trading is passive income, because it is the most work you will ever do as a retail trader, because the difference between retail and institutional trading is in retail you can't cheat. So it makes it a million times harder, right? You can't cheat. See, if I had a bad trade on the desk, like sometimes we trade our own account, right? Yep. And if I took a $10,000 loss, I could call up one of my market makers and hey, can you put up 10 for me? Right? And he'd eat my loss.
Wow.
Because I made him 25 grand that day.
Yeah.
Right? Things were different. I mean, if the compliance officer wouldn't sign something, his sister just by some miracle made 5 grand this morning in her account. Things like that. Those sorts of things, of course they don't happen now. You can't bribe compliance officers like you used to in the old days. But, all of that sort of thing, we bent the rules, found ways around it, all of that stuff. We had capital, we had, all sorts of things that doesn't make it fair. When you're retail trading, you're in, you got an account, 5 grand, 10 grand, whatever it is. And so protect that capital, learn that it's a marathon, right? And don't be hard on yourself, right? Because you're in an industry where people are actually basically trading against some of the most intelligent, most well-capitalized, evil people you will ever meet in your life, right? And we look at you as food, right? So just take your time and don't push it. It's better to learn and learn how things work, and then start small and learn how to trade. That's why I love the micro E-mini futures, because if you have a bad day, like today I traded like crap. I lost $30 because I knew I wasn't on my game. Yeah. So I just traded the micro, and I wasn't trading well. I wasn't paying attention, and I lost $35, right? Which is not the end of the world. No. Right?
No.
And don't get sucked into this shorting OTC pumps and things like that. It's just trade a real market. Like the micro is great. It's 78 cents round trip, and $50 or $100 day trade margin or whatever it is, right? So everybody could trade it. And you know what? If you have a bad day, you lose $30, right? Yeah. And it's like trading with training wheels, right? Yeah. Learn your craft, because it is like brain surgery, and if you don't know basic anatomy, you're going to be cutting at the ankles instead of at the head. And just take your time. Don't be hard on yourself, because it's not easy. And the deck, basically you're out, it's trench warfare. Everybody else has ICBM missiles and you're out there with a plastic spoon. That's your weapon, right? And so you've got to hit and run, steal when you can sometimes, and learn the business.
Yeah. And where do they learn the business though, JJ? Tell us about how you help educate them so people know where they can get that education, because how are they going to learn the business? Most people don't really understand the business, is what you've taught me.
And it's the weirdest business in the world, because it's the only business where you can do things like sometimes there's real buying and sometimes there's fake buying, because sometimes we buy a market to take it up to sell what we bought lower, right? Yeah. And you can't do that in a normal business, right? No. So I teach this at microefutures.com. And what I like to do is we like to keep the price low so people have access to the knowledge, Yep. And I treat it like it's not like a trading room where people are posting their trades and bragging and all of that stuff. It's an educational format. And we've got guys in there who have traded 10,000 mini contracts and made $50 million a month. And then we've got somebody in there with a $300 account. And it's a very collaborative environment. So we, we have guys in there who used to build missile systems for Lockheed. Wow. And there are, brain guys, and I can go to them and go, hey, if I can't figure something out or the math, they've got it. Right. Yeah. So, and we're very helpful, and because we realized that, it's just, sending people out there. It's so easy. It's like shopping at Amazon. You just click and you buy something. Yeah. I never really did the whole online shopping thing. Last year I bought somebody a Christmas present and I click and they got it the next day, and I was like, oh my God, it was so easy to spend that money. I didn't even see it going out of my hands. Right?
Exactly.
That's the business model.
That's the business model.
In the old days, you call your broker and you'd go, yeah, I want to do this. And he'd be like, what are you, high? Right? Right? So you had that checks and balances, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's so true.
If you had a decent broker, he'd go like, what the hell's wrong with you? Right?
Oh my God.
And they wouldn't take the order because they knew you were going to blow yourself up. Right. Totally. So you had those checks and balances. Now you just click. Yeah, I'm in a trade. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. That's my biggest concern with we always refer to it as like Robinhood, but I mean, I feel like every brokerage out there, the way they're presenting their apps is basically just like a game. And that makes me nervous for people who are just getting into it.
That's marketing, right? And for the people who are new to this, remember that this is a market, just like Walmart, just like anything else. We bring you in to sell you something. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And then when you're tired of it, we'll buy it back cheaper. Yeah. Right? And we'll keep doing this. So at the end of the day, we have all your stock and all your cash.
It's true.
Right? And I didn't say that. Victor Niederhoffer says that. And he used to trade for Soros. It's
love Victor Niederhoffer.
I've never met him, but
JJ, really? He's amazing. He's amazing. I got to interview him actually for Stocks to Trade. Not that long ago. It was just me and Victor, and I got to meet Victor a really long time ago through his wife, actually, Susan Niederhoffer. Really? She was active with conscious capitalism, and at the beginning when John Mackey was kind of launching conscious capitalism. Chip Connolly actually was like you, when he heard kind of where I was coming from with capitalism, he was like, you have to meet Susan. And then I met Susan, and then she introduced me, of course, to Victor. And Victor, I love Ayn Rand, and I love libertarianism. And Victor used to run it was like a Rand libertarian group once a month in New York City. And he used to, kind of hold court with, what's the other guy's name? Epstein. He's a writer for Barron's, I think. Gene Epstein. So anyway, Victor, man, talk about a brilliant mind. I would walk away in conversations with him. My head felt like it was grown 5 sizes.
One of the most influential and favorite chapters of a book is Education of a Speculator, the first chapter, The Old Man and the End. when he's I think he's short US dollar yen, and he's short like $400 million is his position, and he's just sweating, and he hasn't slept in 3 days, right? And the funniest thing was his CD player was broken, and he wouldn't buy a new CD player. Because he's trading a $400 million position, and he's too cheap to buy a new CD player, right? Because he's down in the trade, and he doesn't want to spend the $50. And I love that. That's old school. I was
school
by that, right? I would
old
love
school.
To. I'm a huge, Victor Niederhoffer fan.
Well, happy to do an introduction if you want. I mean, he's at New York, Connecticut, I think still. So, but he is, he's a piece of work. He is a piece of work. I mean, besides being a genius, he's just eclectic in his experience of the world. The lens he looks out of is not the lens that most people look out of. Yeah. And I just find that to be, he's so contrarian. I remember he talked about like how he would look at the cigarette butts on the sidewalk cracks, and that would tell him whether people were more stressed or not. And that would he'd see these like little small clues that would lend to him to specifically looking at trades a certain way. Like that kind of eye is it's genius. I mean, I think the man's
and I got that from him is where, you start talking to a market when you're trading it, like how he would talk to the market. and when I'm teaching, the guys in my room are like, they'll find out, they're like, yeah, JJ's talking to the market. What's he doing? I'm like, I got that from Victor Niederhoffer. It works for him, I'll try, right?
Yeah. I think it works. Honestly, there's a lot of times where you you have to call out what you see, and then you just like start talking and be like, "Come on, what are you doing today?"
Come on, get down there.
Exactly. Well, JJ, thank you. You gave us way more time than I could have ever asked for. So thank you for being so generous today and coming on my small little podcast, which Lucas and I have only started recently. So you are like our famous, it's like having the Pope show up for us. The Pope in his black hood.
Oh my gosh. I know. I just the reason I do that is the old days, my thing was with my clients that, your secrets will die with me. But, and the thing was, once I started meeting retail traders, I was like, oh my God, somebody's got to tell them what's going on.
Someone's got to help them.
It's just,
it's your redemption tour.
We appreciate it.
It's your redemption tour, as you said, right? And we're lucky that on your redemption tour, you were willing to do a little stop at our little small hole-in-the-wall bar and grill.
All the time. Listen, it doesn't matter, big, small, whatever, right? I just got to redeem these sins.
Well, I think you've done that already with all that you've shared with your people in the room, and they're lucky. Yeah. So again, if anybody wants to learn from JJ, which I highly advise you do, please visit his room, microfuture.com. And what was the other website? Besides podcast, The Confessions of a Market Maker, which JJ is a co-host with Ray. But what was the other website? vwaptrader1 at Twitter. They can DM you there. And was there another website besides microfuture.com?
Well, Microfutures has got sort of all of our stuff on there. We've got an equities room and futures. And so we try and help everybody. We've got one of my old guys who does option stuff. He's another guy who's got a bad heart. So all the old traders have that. We're held together by duct tape.
Eat you up and spit you out. But you guys lived. You lived to tell, which not everybody does live, JJ. We know that. Some people overdose and, just can't.
Like Chris and I say, we're hard to kill.
Yeah, exactly. But you're doing good things, helping to educate all of us. And it's incredible that you're so generous with this knowledge, and we need to know. I need to know as a baby trader. I mean, Lucas has, been at it for a while, but I have a lot to learn. And I'll tell you, since talking to you, I'm proceeding even more carefully.
It's weird. On the other side, I thought everybody knew this, and I just thought I had a head full of useless information. And, and I got out there and I was like, wow, nobody teaches this. I'm like, and then you think about it, shouldn't they be teaching people this in school? Right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to invest when they're older. Like, shouldn't they know a little bit? Because in Canada, they teach us about, the fur trade. That's really going to help. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's scary. There's things that we're still teaching in school and the things we're not. It's just very counterintuitive. It really doesn't make any sense. So, all right, JJ, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Maybe one day I can be lucky enough to have you back. And
anytime.
Just thank you for help. I'm sure we're going to have a slew. Probably be our most popular episode, Lucas. What do you think?
I was going to say, anytime JJ goes on a podcast, it becomes the most popular podcast.
Right through the roof. I think it's 27,000 views of your Stocks to Trade interview. It's 27,000 views now, JJ.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
wow.
I'll be happy for a quarter of that.
Listen, anytime you guys need help, I'm here. Kim,
okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're the man.
Love you, JJ, so much. Much aloha. Right back to you. Thank you guys for watching us here on the Wall Street Coach Podcast. We'll see you next time.
This has been the Wall Street Coach Podcast with Kim Curtin. You can find out more about her and her team online at thewallstreetcoach.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes. Thank you for listening.